Berkshire. Back to the streets of Bracknell, back to Charles Square, and more questions that you've been giving us.
I'm Ben, I'm a first-time voter, and I'd like to know what are the candidates going to do about the youth service and how to improve it and take care of the youth today.
My name's Sonia, and I want to know what you want to do, what you can do for the youngsters. There's not enough for the youngsters to do anything. You know, there's nowhere for them to go, so that's why they hang about and get into trouble.
Ray Erica for the Lib Dems. What about more for young people in Bracknell?
Well, obviously everyone wants to do the best for young people and give them every opportunity to, you know, explore and expand their knowledge and experience of the world. But I mean, you know, in the old days, we didn't have half the facilities that people have these days, and I do fear that sometimes young people
tell them to stop moaning, that's the answer.
Yeah, stop moaning. You know, the level of expectation is far too high. You know, why should we have to keep providing all these facilities when there's quite possibly enough resource around for them to occupy themselves? They're not stupid. They just have to regard themselves as young citizens and be prepared to sort of say and play their part in the community as a whole.
John
It doesn't have to be antisocial.
John Piasecki for Labour, what do you think about what Ben and Sonia had to say?
I think that Ray has a point to the extent that there are some wonderful facilities for young people, assuming you have the access to them and the cash to pay for them. In terms of what you might regard as public service facilities, they are run by the council, and I would say that Conservative Council have been very poor in that over the last number of years. Certainly in South Bracknell we have campaigned long and hard for a youth service facility there. We are now getting it. It's being paid for out of the money which came through from Bracknell Forest Homes, and that should be open later this year on Great Hollands. But what I think most young people need, and that is again being provided by by the Labour Party, and that's this issue of a future in terms of apprenticeships and training and education. And there is a lot of money being put into that, and certainly when I was a young lad...
Are we seeing any of it round here?
Oh, yes, you are. I mean, in fact, there was a press release which was in the local press not so many weeks ago, and Bracknell Council themselves were congratulating themselves on their apprenticeship schemes which they had just put in.
Philip Lee for the Conservatives. I want to take you back to the question, which is about opportunities for young people, stuff for young people to do in the Bracknell area. Is that a problem?
Well, first of all, I think the leisure facilities in Bracknell constituency are quite remarkable. I mean, if you go around the country, I cannot think of an area that has so many water facilities, a ski slope, an ice rink, pitches, sports pitches. I mean, the leisure facilities are fantastic, all of which have been delivered by Conservative administrations in Bracknell Forest. Now, in terms of things to do, I've already mentioned this National Citizen Service that David Cameron has talked about his vision for a big society, fully funded by the Department for Community and Local Government's Community Cohesion Programme. We've promised 450,000 more apprenticeships. We've promised 10,000 more university places because of the crisis in places that's going to come about this year. We're doing our best by young people. What I would say, though, is that the one thing that a young person, when they go into the polling booth on May the 6th, just think about your future, think about jobs, think about debt. At the moment, the national debt is rising. By the time, if you go to university, by the time you come out of university, the debt will be £1.4 trillion. Your generation is going to have to pay that off. And when you ask yourself who's spent all that money, it's the Labour government.
And when you ask yourself who's not acting on it as quickly as they could, it'll be David Cameron's Conservatives, because they're busily not putting up national insurance and offering tax breaks to married couples, and inheritance tax cuts and all sorts.
Absolutely, but I can take that head on. You do not necessarily pay down the debt by increasing tax. It's well recognised that if you reduce tax, it can increase tax take. So the fact that we are reducing national insurance, thereby protecting jobs.
Okay, Philip, thank you very much. Thank you. I want to bring in John Piasecki for the Labour Party now in Bracknell. You feel comfortable saying to the people of Bracknell, vote for me, I'm the man who'll put up your national insurance, or I'm supporting the man who wants to do that?
Can we put the national insurance into context? When Labour introduced the minimum wage, many of the big companies said it was going to cost thousands of jobs. It didn't. When they put a penny on national insurance to pay for the health service, many big companies said it was going to cost thousands of jobs. It didn't. This particular national insurance rise for a company like Marks and Spencer's will cost them about £10 million. They are about to pay to their new incoming chief executive a £15 million golden handshake. So what they're saying is their entire workforce is at risk for 10 million, but they can afford to pay one man 15 million just to say hello.
Final word in this debate. I'm going to have to get. We're running out of time, so you would let me bring in Ray Erica as the final contributor on this. What do you want to say, Ray?
Well, thank you, Andrew. I think you know, tax. You can tax. Everyone has to pay taxes, and it's a question of how you spend that money, I think, and how you raise it. And it's got to be done on a fair basis. And I've always subscribed to the view that from each according to his means, to each according to his needs, and within reason. I think most people would go along with that, and what we have at the moment is a clear break between the rich and the poor.
Thanks to the candidates in the studio. I mentioned again we did want David Young, the Green candidate, to take part, but we weren't able to get him as part of the debate. You can see the full list of candidates for Bracknell and all our constituencies at bbc.co.uk/Berkshire.